Welcome to the LMI Best Practice Series webinar. Today's session is on prospecting through speaking engagements. LMI does produce a booklet by the same name, but sometimes it helps to hear from people who have actually put the subject into practice. Today we will be hearing from three different individuals in three different areas. Mike Ali is from Roanoke, Virginia area. Ray Stuckley is from the Chicago, Illinois area. And Vince Fazio is from the Allentown, Pennsylvania area. We will be hearing from all three presenters first, and afterwards we will open it up for questions. As this session is being recorded, I have muted everyone's microphone until we get to the questions and answers section of our presentation. Mike, would you like to get us started?
Sure. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I am very excited actually to talk about this topic, and hopefully everybody on the call here will get something beneficial from it. And the reason I'm excited is because I really think that using speaking engagements has helped my business considerably. To give you a little bit of background of where I'm coming from and why I chose to do speaking engagements as part of my prospecting and business building was that unlike Ray and Vince coming after me here, I have not been with LMI a long time. I joined LMI in 2007, but it was only 3 years ago where I left my corporate job and pursued it full time. And at that time, I'm not a native Roanoker. I do not know a lot of people in the area. And even the first 4 or 5 years I lived here, I traveled a lot in a corporate job. And so when I decided to go full time, about the only people I really knew were those from work, from the corporate job I was in, as well as I had a few acquaintances through a running club and through my church. So I really was not connected at all to the community. And much of my first year in business, I did a lot of networking. I tried to get out as much as possible. And one of the things that Sam had said to me in a training class once was that, you know, we are a people business, so you have to be in front of people. Obviously, making calls and setting up appointments is an important part of our business, but ultimately you have to be seen, and you have to see other people. And so when I was starting out, I looked at that speaking engagements as a way to do that. And so my main purpose for really doing speaking engagements, and it's still probably my primary purpose, is to become known in the community and to establish that know, like, and trust factor so that business leaders would start recognizing my name, recognizing my business, and because without being known in the community, it's very hard, right, to get in front of people to speak with them. And so, just a little quirky information. My actually very first speaking assignment was actually at a retirement home. And I talked nothing about LMI. I actually talked about Navy nuclear power. I have some background in Navy and nuclear propulsion, and they thought it would be interesting to talk to a bunch of veterans at a retirement home. They paid me a whopping $100, and it had no benefit whatsoever to my business, except it gave me some practice, and it was something that I enjoyed doing. Since then, I have done quite a few speaking engagements, maybe not as many as some others have, but I have worked very hard at increasing the quantity and as well as the size of those speaking engagements. So originally I started out, I've done a workshop with a chamber in town, Chamber of Commerce. I've done a couple speaking engagements at Rotary and Kiwanis clubs, and this has ultimately led to some of my latest speaking engagements, which were a little bit more substantial, I guess would be a way to say it. Just this year, I had the opportunity to be a speaker at a business summit here in town, and a few months ago I had the opportunity to speak at a national manufacturing conference in Charlotte. So those type of speaking engagements have added, I believe, to my credibility and my visibility. And even next spring, I am working with putting on an actual conference here in Roanoke where I'm going to be the face of the conference in regard to almost like the master of ceremonies, introducing the speakers and so forth. So over time, those speaking engagements have provided me even more opportunities for greater speaking engagements as I go along. As for what this has done for my business, the main thing I wanted to tell all of you is that while speaking engagement is one of the ways you can prospect, and clearly meeting people at these speaking engagements and be able to get interviews from them is an important aspect of it, I've looked at it primarily as simply getting credibility and visibility. And so if you're thinking of doing speaking engagements, and you're maybe not comfortable doing so, my big recommendation is find something you are comfortable talking about. Find something that you have some expertise, and talk about it, even if it has nothing to do with LMI. And the reason for that is because that will still add to your visibility and credibility. So, you know, you see some of the topics I've talked about. Some of them are clearly LMI related, but I've done a few talks about Navy nuclear power. And I've also taken some opportunities to facilitate some board retreats, which is not necessarily a speaking engagement per se, but it definitely provided for some visibility and credibility. Another thing I did once with our chamber was I facilitated some focus groups. Again, it was getting in front of decision makers and adding to the credibility and visibility for my business. So that's just a little summary of what I've done. And I will hand it off to the next person, who I think is Ray.
Okay, thank you, Mike. And Ray, you're up.
Well, thank you, Mike. That was fantastic. Good afternoon and good morning. My name is Ray Stuckley. I've been involved with SMI and LMI for probably over 23 years now. And one of the things that I found early on was that I like to find easy ways to operate that I'm comfortable in prospecting. And for me, speaking engagements, after having, strong referrals from centers of influence, has been one of the ways that I've truly built my business. I truly found that when meeting with people and talking to them, especially in a group format, there's a relationship that you can create there that leads to just what Mike was talking about, an awareness of who you are, a branding, but also as you put these different talks and things together, you start to help people maybe find some issues or challenges and then some ways that they feel could be addressed. I've talked to just about any organization you can think of over the years. I was tallying things up and looked, and I was probably well over 500 of these I've done over the years. And it's ranged everywhere from a 10-minute talk to, a half a day. One of the things that I find that I think is important is for you to understand what works for you. And I guess the key thing I would say there is, one, do you enjoy being in front of people? Now there's two different aspects of that. There's the one-on-one type, which, is what you do when you're in the business, and I'm assuming since you're on this, that's something you're comfortable with. And you have an interest in the other side, which is talking to groups. I think you'll hear a common theme here that if you are interested in doing that, then practice is the best way to do it. And getting involved with different areas or companies or people that can help you with that. One of the ones that I have seen over the years is certainly Toastmasters. It's ironic, in the last 5 groups, programs that we've been doing, there has not been an individual in management that has not taken on a developmental goal of wanting to communicate better, and they've joined Toastmasters. It's out of each group, there's always been one. It's been fascinating to me. So it tells me that people want to do that. Now, once you've looked at that and you've decided, yes, this is something I want to do, then this shouldn't sound unfamiliar. What's your goal? What do you want? What's interesting is when I sat back and started to do this, it dawned on me that I've let this slide. I really have. And I think many of you may be aware that I have sold my franchise, and Jeff Johnson has bought it, and Jeff and I are working together, and I'm excited about it, and it's fantastic. But I think one of the things that struck me is this: why am I missing this? Why am I not doing it? So as of Monday, we're sitting down and putting together a plan about speaking engagements for both Jeff and I. So it's certainly something that I feel has some amazing strength to it. Now, what do you want to do when you are talking to groups? One, you want to find out what they're interested in. You know, what have they talked about in the past? What have they talked about recently? Trust me, I've done that, where I've walked in and you can watch the eyes roll because somebody just a week ago talked about the same subject. So do your homework up front. Understand what they want, why they want it. And then at the same time, you know, look at and find out what are some of the issues and concerns that come out of that, that you think. If it's a Rotary, or if it's a specific business organization, certainly there's other issues that you can take a look at with that. Don't neglect the fact of looking at companies who would want to have talks for their groups. It could be they have a management group, they could have a sales group. There's all sorts of areas where you can be looking at doing that. It's all a matter of asking. I've put several talks together over the years and all sorts of different things, and I have quite a few different PowerPoints that I put together. But I can tell you very quickly that it's nothing that I really originated. If you go to the kickoff or the LMI concept, there's a wealth of it there. If you've been to the conferences and listened to the talks, I have used more of Randy's talks in various formats because he does an exceptional job of research, and really it always seems to, you know, hit a specific point that you can really create some excellent talks and workshops from. The other point I guess I wanted to make here too is I keep using the word talk or speaking engagement, and every opportunity that I have, I always try to figure out a way to involve the audience. You know, if it's a small enough group, I'm handing out things and we're doing exercises a little bit, something they can walk away with that they have in their hand. If you haven't used it, and I'm sure many of you have, a simple example of that is the numbers game. I have gotten more positive response from that and more awareness about, wow, I don't plan, than any other little tool I think I've ever used. The other aspect of it is, I think Mike brought it up, going to things that you feel somewhat confident about. If you sort of have some expertise in a specific area, then look for things and places you can use that expertise, because you'll be more confident going in, you'll be more aware of what people are interested in, and you can then gear your talk, your material that you have, to that specifically. Now, one of the other things that I have done, and I don't even remember where I got this from, so if somebody's listening on a call and they gave it to me, let me know, I'll give you credit for it. But when you're giving a talk, you want to be able to have something positive come from that, and what I focus on is when I walk out, I want to talk to people who want to talk to me. And I have started out very early on that I was not going to be just getting a list of anybody who showed up and calling them. I think that's irritating. I hate it, so I wasn't going to do it. So I found this, and this is what I use. I ask this right up front with anyone who's asking me to speak. I says, I'll gladly speak before your group, and if I'm not charging for it, I'll say there is something that I would like to ask for your permission. I would like to have a raffle, and that raffle, I would like to ask the following questions. One, if someone has an interest, a challenge that they heard today that they'd like to talk to us further about, I'd like to ask them to put yes on their card. If they would like to receive our leadership newsletter, that's an e-newsletter that comes out monthly, put yes on your card. And if you know of any organization, association, or company that would like to have a workshop similar to this, or one that would be more customized to what they would like, put yes on your card. Now, there is a fourth question I will ask when it's appropriate, and that is, you know, we're expanding our organization at LMI Chicago, and we're looking for individuals who are interested in starting their own business and making a real difference in people's lives and their organization. If you or someone you know has an interest in learning more about this career opportunity with LMI Chicago, put yes on your card. And then I basically collect the cards at the end. I call the people who are yeses. I have rarely gotten it where I at least don't get somebody on the newsletter list, and I always get at least one or two people who have other organizations that I can talk to. So I would, you know, when I thought about putting this together and the time frame we had, I thought that's one thing if I'd like to impart to you that I found has worked quite well. And it all starts up front in how you present it to the organization or association. I can honestly say I rarely have ever had anybody say no to me about that. And final point, if you would like to, you know, I'm more than glad to share some of the things that I do with PowerPoints and things like that. So if you have an interest, you know, certainly just let me know afterwards or let Sam know, okay? Thank you. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Ray. And we have another presenter from Allentown, Pennsylvania. Vince, you're up.
Greetings, everyone. One of the things I want us to really touch on about this is that, you know, one of the greatest fears that people have is in public speaking, some even greater than death, which means that somebody'd rather die than give a public public speaking talk. I'm nervous a little bit right now doing this, okay? I've been in this business for a long time, as you see on the screen there, 28 plus years, and I'm going to keep doing it until I get it right. Over that period of time, I've done a few speaking engagements, not nearly close to the 500 that Ray has done, and can't imagine somebody listening to him 500 times. But in any event, and that's what I want to speak to, is that I wish I would have done more over that period of time. And sometimes, you know, we get some self-imposed limitations that get in the way of speaking. So I kind of like to speak a little bit about that. One of the things that at the International Convention, if you attended that, you may have seen or heard what Boyd Over said about becoming known in his community. He's very well known in his community. Lots of people know who he is and what he does. And, you know, he's in a small community, and you have to just define your community. And this is one of the best ways to get known, as some of the other speakers have said, is to just for developing a bit of a credibility. You know how difficult sometimes it is to get appointments with people, but if they've seen you speak, then they know what you look like, and that's just a little bit of a slight edge that you might have to do that. So coming from the convention, that was one of my interests, is to do a little bit more in that public speaking, because I'm pretty good at it. I just don't do enough of it. Now, the reason that I'm pretty good at it is when you see the organizations I presented to, I said my bedroom mirror Well, that's preparing for my Toastmasters speeches when I was involved with Toastmasters, and of course I've done the Chambers of Commerce, the Rotaries, and client meetings like the other guys have done. Toastmasters I have been involved in off and on since about 1999. Okay, I say off and on because there are times when I've gotten away from it. I'm not a member now because I don't feel it was really meeting my needs at the time. But and I felt I was a good speaker before I got involved in Toastmasters. It took me several years to do it. But once I got involved with it, it was tremendous from a standpoint in that you build your confidence, allows you to come up with some techniques to develop a speech, to get comfortable doing that speech in front of other people. I've heard the Dale Carnegie program is also good for that. I've never taken it personally, but I've heard great things about it. And they take the approach that you're going to speak every week, whether you like it or not, and that can be very useful as well. So you really got to put yourself out there. When Mike mentioned about the first time he spoke was at a retirement home for practice, that was very interesting because I can remember way back when, probably 28 years ago, when I was really new in the business, that I had an opportunity to speak at a local IBM office. 60 IBMers. I was like so excited about this. I was going to get business from IBM. Well, I was so nervous about that I did a terrible, horrible job with it. I read my speech. I was very nervous. I felt bad even charging them for it. And, I just knew I did a bad job. But the very next week, I had another speaking engagement that went very well because I was better prepared, not over-prepared like I was for the IBM speech, but better prepared and keep talking off an outline, being more comfortable and talking more comfortably about whatever. I don't even remember the subject, but I got back on the horse. So I wanted to share that with you. What we're comfortable talking about are things like time management and goal setting, and you see all those topics from Ray and from Mike. And basically, you see the same topics from me, but I come up with some little different ideas in terms of the titles. And I get creative with that to generate some interest. Okay, so the titles that I have there that you see there are very, very, very basically the same topics that the other guys covered, but in a bit of a twist to it. And it makes it a little bit more fun and generates some interest. Where do you find topics? You can take one lesson from any LMI program, and quite frankly, if you studied it and you learned it word for word and just gave that, people would probably think it was a great speech. Or use it as an outline and build, get some other data or whatever. It really doesn't take much. If you're getting back to that fear of public speaking, there's lots of opportunities out there because there's not a lot of people out there who don't have that fear. So you have all kinds of opportunities like a Chamber of Commerce, like a business meeting, and other opportunities that you may not think about where you're not even in front of people face to face, but on a radio show. I've done that before. I've been interviewed on a radio show, and you're just talking to one other person who's in the station on the radio in a microphone, and that's broadcast to a bunch of different people, just like we're doing right now. I'm speaking to billions and billions of people right now on this talk, right, Sam? So
you got it.
There'll be lots of people out there that are hearing you speak, but if you have that bit of a nervousness in front of people, you can do things like radio programs as well. I've done a couple of those. Someone mentioned something about branding, and I have a bit of a brand myself that I've used over the years. Anybody tell me what that might be?
Manufacturing positive change.
That's what we do. That's what we do. And I say that people who manage change are influenced and controlled by people who manufacture change, to manufacture positive change. It's something I came up with a long time ago, and that's my brand. You can make a speech topic out of that. So there may be a tagline or something that you can use that would generate some interest from people. One of the things that, as far as Toastmasters and getting better at public speaking and more comfortable with it is not to look at it as a speech or a talk, but as a performance, okay, as a performance, so that to utilize the room, move around the room, get people involved, as Ray had mentioned, in that performance that you're giving, and that's why it takes practice. When I say in front of my bedroom mirror, I can tell you that I've spent hours, 2 hours, 3 hours practicing in front of a mirror for a 5 to 7 minute Toastmaster speech, so that I can perform it the best way I possibly can and win that for that week's best speech contest. But it takes some practice. It takes some performance. One of the things that you can do in terms of getting the audience involved, I'll tell you right now, I've never, ever created a PowerPoint presentation. Oh, my goodness. Never created a PowerPoint presentation. What I have done is handed out 3x5 cards to people and said, I'd like you to take notes during my talk, and at the end of this, I'd like you to pick one idea, just one idea out of this that you found was the most valuable idea out of this talk today. And then on the other side of the card, list one action step that you're going to take to utilize that idea. And if there's time at the end of this talk, you can ask people what some ideas that they've gotten. I've used it with a company meeting where I've asked someone to volunteer to take all those ideas and then create a document to send out to everybody else so they can see what everybody has written down, including the CEO of the company, and the action steps they were going to take so that they get a return on investment for either the time or what they paid me to do that. Does that sound familiar to you? Something we do all the time is, ideas are great, but they're better if they're put into action. And, if we just do what we normally do in facilitating a program by having people take action on just one thing that they get out of that performance, then they're going to like that and perhaps ask you to come back for more. And one of the things to think about, no matter what group that you're speaking to, you're not just speaking to them, but you're speaking to everybody they know. So if you make a good impression on them as far as what you've talked about, the ideas that you've come across, the action steps, they may know someone else, just like Ray was saying in that card, who do you know that might be interested in the speech? They're going to be thinking about that. Ask those open-ended questions. You're speaking not just to that people. So, that retirement home that Mike talked about, maybe that will get something, maybe it won't. But the person at retirement home may have a son or a daughter who's a high-level executive somewhere who they're having a conversation with and say, hey, what did you do yesterday? Oh, we had a guy in here who's a management consultant speaking about nuclear power. Oh, yeah, well, tell me about that. Here's his card. You never know where it could go. Basically, if you have that kind of fear that's in the back of your mind as far as public speaking, just do it. Just get out there, do it. If it's a retirement home, if it's somebody talking to somebody in line at the grocery store, just get involved, do it. I wish I had done it more, and as a result of that, to be honest with you, there was a call out there. I'm a member of the local chapter of the Society for Human Resource Management, and an email went out. They have a conference in October asking for speakers. So I threw my hat in the ring, and I'm using as my basis for that the one topic you see there, leadership, is all about taking action on the Asians. It's the one and only article that I've ever written and got published in the business magazine. I sent that to them, sent them my bio, and I'm one of the speakers that has been approved to speak at this conference. I get 2 opportunities, one on a Monday and one on a Tuesday. So, I just put it out there. People are looking for speakers. Just go do it. It can be a lot of fun. It can be nervous at times, but you never know what it can generate for you. I think that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Vince. I must say all 3 presenters did a great job. I do have a couple of comments that I wrote down here. I wrote down, I love the idea about setting a goal. Everybody needs to set a goal as to what they want to accomplish. I wrote down associations in your area. This goes to show you how long it's been. When I was in the field, we had something called the Yellow Pages. That was before the internet, because we didn't have such a thing. And in our Yellow Pages, we had listings of all kinds of associations and groups that were in our area. Also, the Chamber of Commerce had listings of all different kinds of associations. And associations have people who are responsible for the different meetings, and they had to find presenters for the different meetings. And you could help them out tremendously by offering your services as a speaker. So you can, nowadays, I guess you could just email them all and let them contact you. But those are things that you can do. Also, the prospecting through speaking engagements. If you do not have that booklet, if I'm not mistaken, it is online. Don't ask me where. We got so much stuff online. But you could always talk to either Merlin, myself, or somebody and get a hold of that if you do not have it. It also has information on there about how to get leads and how to do drawings and different things. Then I heard somebody, they were talking about Toastmasters. And one thing about Toastmasters is a self-improvement organization. What industry are we in? People that go to Toastmasters are going there because they want to improve themselves. And great place to prospect for two things. One, possible clients, because they're interested in what it is that you have. And two, also, they're good prospects for possible associates. So yes, go to Toastmasters. Personally, I started out with the JCs. Then when I went to Tucson, I did get involved with Toastmasters, just because. And it was a very beneficial item. Last but not least, I have an item here. It's a book. So you may want to write this down if you're listening, and it's called You Are the Message. You may have heard of the book, and it's talking about you as an individual. You are the message, just like it says. And that book is by Roger Ailes, A-I-L-E-S. But if you just type into your search engine, You Are the Message, you will most likely come up with the book. Okay, with that, I'm going to open it up for questions. I do have one question here by Mike McGrail. And if I'm not mistaken, he wrote this. He sent me this when Ray Stuckley was talking, and he's asking, what do you raffle off? What do you give them?
Oh, yeah, I skipped that, didn't I? What I've found over the years, what I raffle off is actually an assessment. I usually give an achiever away, and yeah, I mentioned that it's about a $400 value, and it's an individual interpretation. And it always gets an interesting response to it. I've also raffled off different types of books, which you can get from LMI, or any book you like that you can give away. I have not done where I've given out gift cards or any of that. I just find that if they're there and they're looking to grow and develop, I want to give them something that will have some benefit in that area.
Okay, thank you. And if you have a question, you can either send it or you could raise your hand. I do have another question here from Donna about the booklet in the sales certification manual, and I'm not exactly sure what that means. So Donna, I unmuted you. Do you want to explain that, what you're asking?
I think the sales certification manual includes the prospecting through, marketing through prospecting talks manual in it. I know there's a section in the sales certification about public talks.
Yeah, there is, and the link, the page that has a whole bunch of links on it from the sales certification is the page that actually does have that prospecting through speaking engagements. So you can just click on that and you can download it. It's a PDF. Okay, thank you, Donna. And I'm going to go to Dr. Al, and let's see if I can find you here on my list. I'm going to unmute you. Do you want to ask your question? Or
sure, was it?
Something about Rotary?
Yeah, link Rotary with your best idea. I love what you've all said, and I got a dozen or more things on paper. A lot of us have been in Rotary for a long time. and I believe best ideas and Rotary go hand in hand. So I just wanted to drop that out of the sky and see how you reacted to it.
Oh, okay. That sounds like a great idea. Okay. Ray, did you have something?
No, I was just saying that is, that I've done enough Rotaries that when Al mentioned that was a great idea. Duh.
Okay. And then we have Nancy. Go ahead, ask your question, Nancy.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear you say it was for me. Yeah, one of the questions that I had is, have you found that certain organizations generate greater sales opportunities over others? For example, are professional organizations going to be more likely to turn into sales versus civic organizations?
I just from my own experience, the tracking that I've done, I am somewhere around 90% that of every talk I've ever given, I've gotten a sale. Now it may have taken 2 to 3 years before that has happened, but I have not found. I have done specific organizations, quality control, HR, you name it, and I really can't say that there's been any very specific ones where I've seen, a huge thing where I would keep going after that. I don't know, maybe Mike or Vince has some different ones.
Yeah, this is Mike. I have not, with the tracking that I have done so far, the only specific correlation was that I have had the most success when whatever group it was that I was in front of were the higher percentage of decision makers, right? We want to get in front of decision makers. So, I have spoken, for instance, at an ASTD meeting, training development meeting, which had a lot of HR people, but they weren't decision makers. On the other hand, I've spoken at a chamber event that was like a business owner roundtable, and these were all business owners, and I got direct work from that. So the more you can focus on business leaders and decision makers, regardless of the type of club, I think would be the most direct opportunity for you.
Great point.
That's a good point, but I want to make this point is don't limit yourself in looking for just those groups if it's going to stop you from speaking. Don't create a self-imposed limitation on yourself from not speaking because you're only looking for those groups. Get out there, do it. And then, once you create a speech, you have it to then use over and over and over again for all kinds of groups too. So, you want to be careful about that and say, oh, I want to limit myself to just this where I can get a high percentage of business owners, and there's none other opportunities that you can speak that might lead you to business. It may not be as high a percentage, but it gets you out there, it gets you credibility, gets you practice, and it'll probably still get you business. And probably the most important thing about getting business is the follow-up that you do afterwards. Either that card, like Ray was talking about, yes, contact me. You got to follow up. You got to contact the people and say, let's get together. Okay. Don't expect people to just flock to your door. You got to follow up. That's why Ray said sometimes it takes 2 to 3 years. Guess what? You got to follow up with people in this business. Follow up until you get that business. But it may have been started by that speech you did 2 or 3 years ago. Right, Ray?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and I actually have something to add to that. Share your goals with other people. Share them with your classes. I had a class, and in my class I had a manager of a doctor's office. And I was shared my goals, just like we asked them to share their goals. I was shared my goals with them and what I was doing. And one of my 7-day goals that I was sharing was setting up a speaking engagement. And one of the people in the class, this office manager, said, "Oh, I could probably get you a speaking engagement at our association. And I said, great, and we set it up. The best part about it is when I did that talk, this office manager got up and said, listen, this is important. It made a world of difference in our office. It changed the whole thing of how we were operating. And if you're not using his services, you really need to. So, talk about somebody who could really give you some leverage. If you have a person who's been through a program who sets you up for a speaking engagement, they can lend you their credibility and their leverage to that group that you're given a talk to. So that's an aspect. Now, to actually piggyback on that, one of the people that was at that talk was from a hospital that I was trying to get into that I couldn't get the first space with. And because of that talk, I got an appointment with somebody from that hospital that was in charge of working on a project within the hospital, okay, that led me to one of the departments in the hospital, which led me to more business within the hospital. So, these guys are right. Don't give up. One thing leads you to another, leads you to another, leads you to another. Okay, I have a Jeff Johnson here, and he has a question. Jeff, what's your question?
I mentioned Ray. Ray mentioned that he was able to customize a talk to, the individual group. My question is, as I'm starting this out, are there 1, 2, or 3 primary topics or talks that you would recommend I start with?
Yes, and we'll talk about that Monday. No, I would say the ones that I find useful all seem to come out of like the LMI concept type of thing, the discussion about goals, things along the lines of the tyranny of urgent and high payoff activities. And you can customize those in different ways. A topic I've used quite a bit is time versus goals management, which seems to hit nerves. So things along those lines. The other things that I've found is pay attention to what's the latest buzzwords that are going on. Right now, the word engagement is hot. Everybody wants to know how they can create more engagement. So I took a talk that was about self-motivation and changed the title to engagement, and how to create it, and got good responses to that. So that would be some of my thoughts. I don't know about, some of the others, what they might think.
Well, when you go through and you do a number of win-win agreements over the years, you see the same things come up: time management, communication, and motivation. Right?
Yep.
So, as a general topic, you could probably go to any organization and say, out of these 3, what's most important to you? What would you like to hear more about? And then build something on that. You can ask more questions about what specifically they'd like to be able to accomplish as a result of this talk. But don't overcomplicate it. Those are topics that are timeless, that people always want to hear about, always need to improve on. And those are goals that come out of win-win agreements all the time. Improvement in, how do I motivate my employees? How do I get more done in, less time with less stress? And, how do we communicate more effectively?
Mike here. The only thing I'll add to that is I mentioned earlier that I've done a presentation on Navy nuclear power. You may have opportunities to speak in front of groups that just having a general interest topic that may not have anything to do with leadership would be the best option and would be of most interest to the particular audience. And so for me, I picked something that I knew very well and I enjoyed talking about and I had a passion for, and provided that as simply a general interest topic. And again, it's one of those things that, maybe you're not talking specifically about an LMI topic, but there's a bio that's somebody's usually presenting you and telling who you are, and there are business cards and so forth and so on. So, you know, people buy from who they know, like, and trust, and so simply, in my opinion, getting up sometimes and simply developing that, you know, that in and of itself can help you get business.
Mike, I heard that when you gave that talk on nuclear power, people have a very glowing type of impression of you after that. So.
I wonder how long that would take.
Ba-dum-bum.
Okay. I actually have another question that was directed to me, and it says, would Sam be willing to create a shared site page for partners to share their scripts and presentations who are willing to share them? Yes. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. I do not see anybody's hand or any additional questions. So I would like to say I really appreciate everybody today coming on board, and definitely we want to thank you for attending and thank our presenters. They did a great job, and this recording will be put on the web so that you can review it at any time you'd like to. Also, we'll probably put it on YouTube so we can have our millions of people to view it, like Vince asked, so you can say, hey, look at this. Okay, thank you for attending, and this will conclude our webinar.